Hi everyone, my name is Emily Herring and I'm the naturalist with Marshall County Conservation. I'd like to thank you for joining us today to learn about owls of Iowa. This time of year, in the winter months, owls are quite active. In fact, great horned owls are already possibly sitting on eggs. They start to lay eggs in January and they're the first raptors in the state to lay eggs. So this is a great time to be talking about the owls of Iowa. Today we're going to talk a little bit about their adaptations and what makes owls so special, and then we'll talk about the owls that live here in Iowa and how to be able to identify them by their appearance as well as their calls. So the first thing we're going to talk about is adaptations. Owls have a lot of adaptations that help them to be able to survive in their environment. That is something that's special about them that other animals don't have. To start off with, we are going to talk about an owl's eyes. Now, a lot of times when you look at an image of an owl, the first thing you notice is their eyes. Now, owls' eyes are quite impressive. If we were to take an owl and increase it to the same size as we are, our eyes would be the size of softballs. Their eyes are enormous and they are quite large. They're full of rod cells in their eyes, which really helps them to be able to see at night. It brings in the light versus being able to see color. They don't see color as well because most owls are active at night. So when we look at an owl's skull, we can see that a majority of their skull is made up of their eyes. So really, when you put it down, a huge portion of their skull is their eyes. They have sclerotic rings inside their skull, which look like this, that hold their eyeballs into place. Their eyes are so large in their body that they're not able to move them around like you and me. So if we sit still and we look up, we can move our eyes up or down, or we could roll our eyes, which my kids do to me quite a bit. But an owl cannot do that. Instead, they have to move their body because those bony structures and the muscles in their eyes hold them into place. So they have to move their body to be able to see. An owl, sometimes we hear, can move its head 360 degrees all the way around. Well, that's not really possible because they have vertebrae that run down the middle of their back. But owls can turn their heads 270 degrees. What does that mean? That means that they can turn from here all the way around to here without moving their bodies, which us humans are not capable of doing. How can they do that? Well, they actually have twice as many vertebrae as we do. We have 7 vertebrae in our neck and they have 14. That allows them to be able to twist their heads without moving their bodies. That's important because the less they move, the less likely they're going to be able to be seen by their predators or by their prey. Their eyes are great at seeing long distances as well. So not only can they see well at night, but they can also see long distance. So their eyes are a great adaptation that helps them to be able to catch their prey. Another amazing adaptation that owls have is they are capable of silent flight. This helps them to be able to sneak up onto their prey without being heard. To figure out how an owl makes silent flight, you have to look close at their feathers. Their feathers have a fringy, soft surface, and on the edge of their wings is a almost eyelash-like looking fringe. Now that helps to break up the sound as it passes over their wings. If you ever are out in the woods and you're hiking along and you pick up a feather and it's very soft, more than likely you're holding on to an owl feather. So here's a good example. I'm going to take this feather here. If anybody knows, this is a turkey feather. And I am going to flap this turkey feather and see if you can hear the sound. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to take this wing, which is a great horned owl wing, and I am going to flap that. An entire wing versus a single feather. The wing makes hardly any noise at all. Another fun experiment, and something you can try at home, is if you take 2 pieces of nylon rope. You'll notice this rope is just plain nylon rope. And then this other rope, I have taken it and roughed it up. So it's quite fringed like an owl's feather. So here we go. When I swing that rope, you can hear the whoo-hoo-hoo noise that a rope makes when it's going through the air. Here is what the fringed rope sounds like. There is significantly less sound, and that's because that fringe breaks up the air, and so it doesn't make the whooshing sound when it passes through the air. Owls' feathers not only help them to be able to fly quietly, but they help them to be able to blend in. All owls are quite camouflaged. So their wings help them to be able to camouflage and blend in, whether or not they're hiding from predators or from their prey. Because owls are birds, they have hollow bones. This is a bone of a pelican, and as you can see, it is quite hollow. It's also quite light. Owls are very lightweight birds. In fact, a majority of an owl is feathers. If you look at an owl like this barred owl, and you place your finger inside their feathers, it goes almost all the way up to my knuckle in feathers. If you were to remove all of the feathers from an owl, they look quite skinny, and that is because their feathers help to keep them warm as well as help to protect their body. Another thing we notice about owls is that they have really strong talons. Their talons are quite long and made for grasping and crushing. In fact, an owl's able to put over 500 pounds of pressure per square inch on its prey, which almost instantly crushes its skull and kills it. This is important because it allows for the owl to kill its prey quickly, and that prey isn't capable of hurting the owl. If an owl is to get injured while hunting, that could cause it to die in the future if it scratches its eye or has some other injury. So it's important that it kills its prey instantly so it is not injured in the process. Now, 500 pounds of pressure, what's that compared to? Well, us humans, we can do about 150 pounds of pressure. A dog, 300 pounds of pressure per square inch. An owl, 500 pounds of pressure per square inches means that it can take this tennis ball, squeeze it, and be able to touch its talons in the middle. That is how strong an owl's grip is. You can test that out and see how strong your grip is. An owl has a disc-shaped face, and what that does is it helps to funnel the sound to its ears. Now, it can also move its feathers to be able to adjust where that sound is funneled to. Now, depending on the owl species, some owls have asymmetrical ears. Us humans, we have symmetrical ears. Our ears are equal on the side of our heads. But owls, like this little owl up here, the saw-whet owl, has asymmetrical ears. They have one ear up high and one ear down low. What that means is if a sound comes from up high, that ear up high is able to hear the sound a split second faster than the ear down low, and their brain is able to figure out quickly that that sound is coming from up high versus down low. Us humans don't have that ability. Interestingly enough, if you've ever seen a dog tilt its head because it hears a funny sound, well, that's what it's trying to do. It's trying to figure out where that sound is coming from and what that sound is. So owls have those amazing asymmetrical ears that their feathers help funnel sound to. They don't have cartilage like you and me. In fact, the ear itself is just a hole in the side of the owl's head. There are a few owls here in Iowa that have tufts on the top of their head, like the great horned owl. Those tufts of feathers are not their ears. In fact, it's not 100% sure what those feathers do, but that and the screech owl, along with the long-eared owl, have those tufts, and those are not the owl's actual ears. One last thing I like to talk about is an owl's digestive tract. It is a little bit different than most birds. Most birds have a sac on the end of their esophagus called a crop. That crop allows birds to eat a lot of food and then fly away and allow for that food to digest over time. Owls don't have crops. Instead, their esophagus goes directly into their proventriculus, which is a part of their stomach. So owls take their food and swallow it whole, bones, fur, and all. When it's in their stomach, their gastric juices begin to do the dissolving. They also have a gizzard which grinds up their food. Because there are things in there that don't digest easily and are poor in nutrients, like the bones and fur, their stomach actually packs that all together to form a pellet. Then, when the bird is done digesting and there's only bone and fur left in there, it casts its pellet back out, meaning it vomits or spits its pellet back out. Pellets are brown or grayish colored balls that are full of bones and hair. Owl pellets are fun to be able to dissect because they have all different types of bone and fur inside them, and it tells us what the animals have been eating. It is important, though, that you heat treat your pellets if you find them out in nature, so that way you kill any types of bacteria or microorganisms that might be inside them. Otherwise, you can purchase them from companies where they've already been treated, and it's a fun little scientific experiment that all kids enjoy. Now that we've talked about the adaptations that make owls special, we are going to talk about the owls you can find here in Iowa. To start off, I'm going to talk about the three most common owls in our state, and that's the barred owl, the screech owl, and the great horned owl. The first owl we're going to talk about is the barred owl. The barred owl is the one that we commonly hear hooting in our woods. They are a gray and white owl that is commonly confused and called barn owls, but it is pronounced and spelled barred owl, B-A-R-R-E-D. You can remember this because they have bars on their chest. They're year-round residents that are medium in size and can grow up to 21 inches tall. Their head is round and they have those dark eyes, which not a lot of our owls have. They nest in hollow trees and they prefer dark, mature forests. So when you go out to prowl for these owls, you're going to want to look for a larger woods or forested area. They eat mice, small rodents, but they'll also eat birds, including smaller owls, snakes, frogs, crayfish, and even sometimes fish. Now, when you're out in the woods and you hear, who cooks for you, who cooks for you all, you are listening to a barred owl. They're one of our most vocal owls, and this is a good time of year to be out listening for them. This is what their call sounds like. Sometimes they also make calls that sound very similar to monkeys. The next owl we're going to talk about is the great horned owl. It is our largest permanent resident here in Iowa, growing up to 22 inches tall. It is a grayish, reddish-brown color that blends really well into a woodland setting. They usually have a white throat as well. They have a large head with their feather tufts as well as bright yellow eyes. They nest in large tree cavities and oftentimes will lay eggs in unused red-tailed hawk nests. They're our earliest nesting raptor, laying eggs in January. They eat all different types of food, including rabbits, squirrels, skunks, and owls and other hawks. Sometimes we call them tiger owls because of this. You'll notice that I included skunk in there. Great horned owls and owls alike have amazing senses, except for their sense of smell. Because of this, they are able to eat things like skunk, and it doesn't bother them one little bit. If you're out in your towns, you can often hear great horned owls. They like more open country areas because they are a larger bird, but they also can be found in town. Their call is a little bit harder to hear because it's a low hoo, 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 whoo sound. And this is what a great horned owl sounds like. Sometimes juvenile great horned owls will make squawking noises as well. The next owl we're going to talk about is the eastern screech owl. The eastern screech owl is our smallest year-round resident. They look like a great horned owl in the fact that they have tufts and yellow eyes. However, they're small. They're only about 8.5 inches tall. Eastern screech owls can also be different colors. They can either be grayish, brown, or even a reddish color. They like to nest in cavities as well, and they can be found in the woodland areas as well as in town. Because they are preyed upon by other owls, they are great at camouflaging. This owl will eat lots of small rodents and also insects. When you're out and about and you hear this sound, you are listening to an eastern screech owl. Talk about a few more owls that are less common here in the state of Iowa. The first owl we're going to talk about is the long-eared owl. Like its name suggests, it has long ear tufts. Its body is also long and slender, growing up to approximately 15 inches in size. It's similar in color to the great horned owl. It also has yellow eyes like the great horned owl. They prefer nesting in conifers that are close to grassland areas, and this owl will commonly take over old nests of crows, hawks, and squirrels. Their main food source are small mammals, especially voles. This is what a long-eared owl sounds like. The short-eared owl is actually a diurnal owl, meaning that it's active during the daytime. It is an endangered species here in Iowa. It is medium in size, about 15 inches tall, and has long, slender wings. They're reddish-brown in color, and males tend to be lighter on the underside than females. They have a very round head with short ear tufts. It has yellow eyes. They nest on the ground in large open grasslands, areas of 250 acres or more. This is part of the reason why their population is trouble, because we have lost a lot of our grassland areas. Their main food source is mostly meadow and prairie voles. This is what short-eared owls sound like. The least common owl that we find year-round here in Iowa is the barn owl, B-A-R-N. Barn owls are endangered species that can be found in the state of Iowa. Here in Marshall County, we know of one nesting pair. Barn owls are pretty easy to identify because they look quite different than our other owls that we have. In fact, they're even in a different family. Barn owls have white, heart-shaped faces and orangish-tan stomachs and backs. Male barn owls tend to be lighter in color than females. They're medium-sized birds that get about 16 inches tall. These cavity nesters historically nest in hollow trees. However, they are commonly now found in vacant wooden barns and buildings. Depending on the grassland where it lives, its primary food source are meadow and prairie voles. Unlike our other owls, barn owls do not hoot. Instead, they have a hissing like shriek. If you live near a grassy area and want to attract barn owls to your area, you can actually construct barn owl nests. They are great predators for all different types of rodents. A few owls are winter visitors here in Iowa. This includes the northern saw-whet owl and the snowy owl. The northern saw-whet owl is our smallest owl here in Iowa. It only gets about 8 inches tall. They're common winter visitors, meaning that they migrate here in the wintertime. Otherwise, they nest in cavities in the northern forest. Here in Iowa, we often find them in cedars and other conifers. They are small with rounded heads, yellow eyes, and brownish tan colored plumage. Their main food source is mice. Many compare the northern saw-whet call to the sharpening of a saw, hence the name saw-whet. The last owl we're going to talk about is another winter visitor, the snowy owl. The snowy owls occasionally visit Iowa. They are our largest visitor at 23 inches tall. They come in years that we call eruption years. These heavy North American owls are mostly white with dark plumage marks. They have rounded heads with bright yellow eyes. Their main food source on their breeding grounds is lemmings. Here in Iowa, they often come in search of food. Their call is a deep, muffled hoot. I hope you enjoyed learning about owls and their adaptations. I would encourage you to go out and see if you can call any owls in your area. Owls are an important part of our food web. They are predators that help maintain rodent populations here in the state. Their numbers have decreased due to habitat loss. It's also important that we are aware of what poisons we're putting in our environment, including rat poisons as well as lead. If you have any questions about owls, or you'd like to learn more about owls, you can always reach out to us here at the Grimes Farm and Marshall County Conservation. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful winter.